It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, April 6th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is looking forward to spinning the Tankathon wheel with you, Russ.
Oh, yeah. It's like the wheel of misfortune almost.
Yeah, we're going to see what the draft possibilities are based on lottery odds, as well as preview tonight's matchup against the Dallas Stars and the Frozen Four, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with prospect expert Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers to keep up with our episodes. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment over on YouTube to ask us your mailbag questions. Subscribe or follow for free over on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, as of recording, the Flyers have officially sent Sam Ersson back to the Phantoms. I'm hoping that means that Carter Hart is good to go.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, whatever the slight injury was, seems to be clearing up. You know, we don't know what it is, but I would think that that's really what's at play here. And so Ersson goes down, which is good for Lehigh, and Carter Hart, will play out the string. So that's what you want. You want him to go into the offseason feeling as good as you can about this season.
Yeah, exactly. Hope he gets at least a couple of games in before the season is done. One thing that we did not talk about in our recap of the last game against the Blues is the Flyers set their franchise record for blocked shots in the modern era. The record had been 1,317 from 2010-11 and now sit at 1,323. Ivan Provorov leaves the team with 152 block shots, and Owen Tippett is the forward with most block shots at 64. I think going into this season, that's something we would have expected to go up given the Torts style of defense. Did you think it would be record-setting?
I did. I would have said so because I saw it happen with the other teams he played for, that he coached for, and honestly, it's just I like to see it to some degree. I think there's a definite advantage to blocking some shots. But then there are other teams around the league with really good offenses that don't block as many shots. And I've seen what shot blocking can do to guys' careers as far as making them old before their time, making them a lot more banged up. And that is my worry long term and this is why John's never really had a super long run with a team, is because a lot of times those parts start breaking down. And so that's something where it looks fine now, and I give those guys credit, but I've seen that part happen too.
Yeah, in some ways, I think it's a catch-22, right? Because if you don't have the skill to create offense organically, you have to block shots in order to create those odd rushes the other way. And then you do more of that, and it adds to the grind and the wear and tear. So hopefully we can get some more quality, skilled offensive players on the team over the next couple of years to lessen that load. Another stat that you focus on sometimes, Russ, more often than I do in particular, I want to ask you a quick question. Who do you think has of the regular face-off takers, without looking, who had the best face-off win percentage on the Flyers this year?
Are we taking out the guys that only get occasional, that may have a higher percentage? Okay. So it's of the main guys. I'll take a ride on Morgan Frost.
That is incorrect. It would be Patrick Brown, who is no longer on the team. And of the guys still left on the team, Kevin Hayes has the highest percentage, and he is a tick below 50% right now. He's at 49.9%.
That's my only thing about Hayes. Like Frost and Cates have taken more faceoffs than him for sure.
Yeah, it's just he still has a pretty high number, but
Right.
it's definitely not as much. Yeah, Frost is definitely at a higher percentage than Cates right now, but I just thought you'd be interested in that little
that's good.
That little tidbit to know that Patrick Brown was above 50%.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. All right, getting into tonight's matchup against the Dallas Stars. One thing with Dallas is that they haven't played since Monday. So they've had a few days to rest up. They're generally pretty healthy. They just got Scott Wedgwood back, which was, the bigger deal for them with their backup goalie situation, because they've had to overplay Ottinger a little bit as of late. But Wedgwood played in that game for Dallas on Monday. They clinched a playoff spot versus the Preds and have the possibility of winning the Central. So this is a motivated team here.
No doubt it's a motivated team. They're not that far removed from being in the Stanley Cup during the bubble. They have some real good veterans. I mean, Jamie Benn's having a hell of a year. I'm always amazed at Tyler Seguin after the double hip surgery. He's come back pretty strong. Never going to be that guy that he was before, but pretty strong. Right. And Miro Heiskanen's just, if there wasn't an Erik Carlson, he would be right up there for the Norris. I mean, 68 points, 11 goals, 57 assists. Like he's just tremendous, but he really doesn't get a lot of due. But he could beat you just on his own with just great breakouts, great passes on the power play, those kinds of things. So Dallas is a hard team to handle, and it'll be hard for the Flyers because same thing with St. Louis. They're going to get pushed around for a couple of periods, and then if Dallas has the lead, they'll sit on the lead with Jake Ottinger most likely in net. And if not, Dallas also has a lot of scorers that they can come back from behind. So this is a game where the Flyers have to play the right 5-on-5 and not have it keep going to the penalty box, because this team's going to, Rupe Hintz, another guy that is unheralded, right? Even though he gets a lot of points. You can't go to the penalty box as much as you did against St. Louis and hope that they're going to go over, because it's not going to happen.
No, and on that top line with Rupe Hintz is Joe Pavelski, who's having a really solid season this year, as well as
play. Yeah.
I know. Well, it also helps when you put him with Hintz and Jason Robertson, who just broke Mike Modano's single season scoring record for Dallas. He has 101 points now, 2 4-point games in their last 3 outings, with a mere 2 points in the games in between. So he is on a tear. He wants to carry this team on his shoulders.
He's their best player. Doing just that. About that. He is. He's their star. And look, we're not going to say he's better than Mike Modano yet, but he has, 10 more years like this, and we'll be saying it. So right now, he's another guy that's going to cause matchup problems for the Flyers, because he has speed, he has size, he will use some physicality. It's going to be hard to keep him away from the net. The Flyers don't do generally a good job defending the net, so it's a problem.
Yeah, and you're absolutely spot on with staying out of the box, because the Stars' first power play unit is Jamie Benn, Joe Pavelski, Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, and Miro Heiskanen. So that's all those top guys.
Yeah, you want to face that, man.
No.
Even Carter Hart doesn't want to face that.
No, and I'm sure he would like, a more solid defensive structure in front of him for that. But yeah, hopefully Carter Hart will be in net for this game. Otherwise, it will be Sandstrom, given that Urson started the last game. And like I said, they sent Urson back down. But it's going to be a tough game, again, especially because Dallas is very highly motivated right now, trying to get that division title. So we'll see how it goes for the Flyers. I believe it's their last later game of the season based on time zones. I guess there's Chicago next week, but
yeah, there's Chicago next week.
But we'll get into that. In the meantime, we are now, of course, turning a lot of our focus toward the draft lottery. And we always have fun with the Tankathon website. And we are going to take some spins on that coming up next.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000, that's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Again, get in your bets on Joel Embiid for MVP now before the odds change, because people are starting to think that way. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to earn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, Russ, it is officially Tankathon season. The draft lottery is May 8th, so it's not too far away. And right now, as of recording, the Flyers are in the 7 spot with a 6.5% chance to win that first overall pick, which is obviously Connor Bedard. Like, there's just...
Yeah, nobody's changing that. Nobody's trading up to do something else. Like, whoever gets that first pick is taking Connor Bedard, period.
Yep. So unfortunately, the teams above them keep losing, as are the teams below them.
Yeah.
But based on the point totals and scenarios, it seems likely that this is where they'll stay, unless for some reason the Flyers win out, which I find not likely.
No, it's not likely based on the opponent.
Yes. Now, if you look at, splitting the pie into the 100% chance to win that first overall pick, 76% of the spins are above them in the possibilities, and 17.5% of spins are below them on the list. So that is like not
great odds.
Not great odds, because that means there's that 17.5% chance that teams below them will get either the 1 or the 2 pick overall. So that's why we got to be a little nervous here in Flyers land about this. And I don't love those odds with a team below them, especially if it's a team like the Caps. That would hurt. That would hurt a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I think if the Caps were to suddenly move up and get a Bedard or a Fantilli, real rough. But in order to try and assuage my fears, I did a small sample size run of it. And so I did 10 spins on Tankathon, and we put a link to it in the show notes if you're unfamiliar with the site. It's a great site that has like all the odds and lets you spin the wheel, so to speak. And so in my 10 spins I did before recording, the very first spin I did got the Flyers the #1 pick. So I was very pleased with that.
Just stop there.
I know. I should have stopped there, because of the next 9 spins, 5 of them resulted in a team below moving up, so that the Flyers moved down to the 8 spot. 4 of the spins made them stay at the 7 spot, and none of them moved them up to the 2 spot. So given all that, I'm still a little nervous here about what could happen. I am clearly not the ping pong ball or the computer that does it for the NHL. Anything can happen, of course, but that is where we are at here. So we thought we'd look at some scenarios that the Flyers could wind up with as far as potential draft picks. Russ, you want to give the Tankathon wheel a little spin and see what you do in that scenario?
And I'm going to give a disclaimer. There's still some season left, playoffs and otherwise. I still may change my mind on some of these picks, but this is where I am today.
Okay.
So, until my next ranking anyhow. So here we go. So the Flyers on this spin are 7th. So, like someone just texted me today, hey, would the Flyers be okay with Dalevorsky who's a center. Would they be? I don't know. I would be okay with it because he's a defense. He's really good at defense. I don't want to call him defense first because he's got a hell of a shot too. Playing overseas, really good all around. There were some that questioned his offense. I think his offense may come on a smaller ice surface. I've seen his offense. I've seen his shot. His shot's really good. So you figure it'd be between him and Oliver Moore. Either way, I think they would do really good. If you want to get Oliver Moore because they're lacking like elite speed, fine. Then get Oliver Moore. But either way, I think that's a good way to go. All right, so we'll spin it again.
Well, I'm wondering about if Oliver Moore is your next choice at 7. Like, are there guys kind of in between them, between Dalevorsky and Moore?
Well, I don't think Will Smith will drop to 7. Anything's possible, but I just don't think so. And I don't think that, Leonard would be the next pick, even though he's really good. And so is Sandin Pellikka. So I think at 7, I kind of really think it's between these two at the moment. I really do. I don't think Zach Benson will fall to 7. I think Zach Benson is the prize for the team that doesn't get one of the top 4, or maybe he even goes 4th and, Mitchkov, falls down further. So, so that's, and of course it was sad what happened with his dad. So we don't know what kind of implications that might have with him staying over there for, at
family
least
reasons.
Yeah, family reasons and at least the remainder of his contract. So I don't think right now there's anybody else to get in the way, at least not yet.
Okay.
All right, so here's another spin. So they get 2nd.
Ooh.
Now, on this one, this is a tough situation because there's Fantilli and there's Carlson. I had Fantilli at 2 to start the year and then I switched to Carlson, and Carlson's ripping it up in the playoffs. He's more than a point a game playing in the SHL. The difference of the two players, though, is, and Carlson's hard to handle in traffic. He's got a big body. He's got great eye-hand coordination. He could pass or score. He could do all those things. But Fantilli does more things. He's physical. He has just as good a shot. He can take over a game the same way. Is he at the same level right this moment as Carlson? Now, that you could make that argument that maybe he's not. Maybe because Carlson's playing in the SHL, he's slightly ahead of him. But again, Fantilli is an 18-year-old playing in college. So that's okay. And he's going to go back for another year. So the fact that that's going to happen, the only thing you worry about here is, because the Flyers have done this in the past, and I brought this up yesterday, are they going to go for the player that they feel has the fastest path to the NHL? If they're going with that, then they're going to go with Carlson, because Carlson could probably play there next year. If they're going to at least be willing to wait another year, like they are going to now with Cutter Gauthier, then I think they would go with Fantilli. So if I'm making the pick, I'm going to make it Fantilli. I think in the end the Flyers would too, but this would create a lot of discussion.
Yeah, I wonder with Carlson, in terms of his transition to the North American game, if that would be a concern for the Flyers in particular.
He's played well in World Juniors and international competitions, so I don't think that there's any concern for him. I think his game translates no matter what. Excellent.
Love to hear that. Keeping my fingers crossed that that's where the Flyers end up, because I don't want to hope for the number 1 pick and that would go down.
I think that is the Flyers' best case scenario, like they move up 5.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, so let's see. Go again. So now in this one, the Flyers are back at 7. We've done that. We'll go again. Now the Flyers are at 8. That is a scenario that we've talked about. Like, hey,
17.5%.
Yeah, all of a sudden they're moving down. If they're at 8, and let's say Smith, Benson, and Moore are gone, but let's say Mitchkov is there, because it is a possibility. He's a tremendous player. He could be a franchise player. Are they going to wait as long as Minnesota waited for Kaprizov? Is this organization going to wait? And let's say, now we don't know who the GM is going to be, but let's say it's Danny Briere. Is he going to make that his first pick and not really have anything to show for it for 3-4 years, I don't know. I don't think they will. I've conferred with others, and others think the same way I do, that they wouldn't take Michkov, even though he'd by far be the best player there. So I think then going with that lens, then you're into the Dalevorsky territory, Ryan Leonard territory. I don't think they would go with Sandin Pellikka, even though I think he's a heck of a defenseman. I think and this is them, I think they think higher of Cam York than I currently do. I want York to straighten out his offense as far as his shooting. If he could straighten out his shooting, then I'll be.
They don't need a guy like that, right?
Yeah, I'd be higher on York. Sandin Pellikka is a tremendous power play guy too, but already, they do have some other power play guys in their system now.
Right.
Now, so, now that Andre's here. So I don't think they would go for that. So I think then you're talking about Leonard. I think you're talking about now Simashev could be another interesting one. He is a defenseman, but he has mega tools. Like, this guy is just a tremendous skater, tremendous offensive defenseman. Like, you could be looking at an offensive dynamo when he eventually comes. Would they take that? I still don't think
that would be a reach. I think that would be a reach for them. I think they also might consider Braden Yeager.
I wouldn't take Yeager. I think his stock has dropped tremendously. 2 years ago, yeah, I think they would have considered him. I just don't think he's the player people thought. But Edward Shala is another one, Czech player, who kind of is a polarizing guy. He's got tremendous shot. He is a really, really good competitor, can be a high scorer. The same way that the Rangers took Hedel and people sort of looked at him, and now Hedel's a 20-something goal scorer.
Yes, he is.
There's always this question about, these Czech players, and it's easier to come up with the negatives over the positives. But if it's me, if I'm going between the players that I said, I'll go with Ryan Leonard because he's got this physical edge to him. He knows how to get to the net. He's smart. He's feisty, and he's still a high offensive player, but he's not as high as what Shala could be. And so and even Colby Barlow, like the goal scorer that he could be, because he's one of the best goal scorers, if not the best goal scorer in that next grouping. So, but I'll still go with Leonard.
All right. Well, we will continue to follow these prospects as, some of them finish up their seasons in the playoffs and leagues around the world. In the meantime, we've got the Frozen Four this weekend with some Flyers prospects and draft eligible prospects to keep an eye on, and we will talk about that next. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. It's the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find the candidates with the right skills. You need one powerful partner that can help you do it all. One of the things I like about Indeed, it makes it so easy. Indeed partners with you on every step of the process. You can find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, over 90% of employers get quality candidates as soon as they sponsor their job post. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search. And now you only pay for quality applications that meet your hiring criteria. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application. Pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, Russ, the Frozen Four starts tonight with our 2 semifinal matches at 5 p.m. Eastern. We've got Minnesota versus Boston University. That's the big one for Flyers fans. Boston University, of course, we've been talking about this. They have Devin Kaplan and Jay O'Brien, the giant question mark college prospect. And then Minnesota has Bryce Brodzinski, who we talked about last week in depth. He won the player of the region in Fargo for the first portion of that tournament. And I am excited for this one and to see especially what Devin Kaplan and Bryce Brodzinski can do.
Yeah, I think Brodzinski right now is a very hot player, and I think because he can score greasy goals and is a good skater, will definitely be a problem for this. Kaplan has been a guy, though, that has scored important goals for BU, and O'Brien's been kicking in all year. I know Flyers fans want to just, grab this second pick and just diminish what the kid's done, but, he's been good. I mean, he's been really, really good. And, I'm most interested to kind of see what the Flyers think of him now, because they never talk about him. So I really have no idea, what they think of Jay O'Brien. But they're not stocked at the center position. And so it does make me think that they have to look at this and say, this kid has a big tournament. Maybe they should go over to him. I had one person bring up to me at one point, like, hey, his goal scoring's down. And my answer was, hey, he's a playmaker. He's not a goal scorer. Like, his points are up. I mean, that's what you want. He's not a goal scorer.
Where he's slotted on BU makes him more likely to be a playmaker, right? Yes. That's the role he's playing with this team.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's his nature. And that's where, again, when it gets harder to score goals, if you have a guy who could play make, that's more translatable than sometimes trying to get the goal scorer to actually score goals at the next level. That's a lot harder. So I look at O'Brien and I say, somebody's going to give him a chance, whether it's the Flyers or not. Somebody will, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But as far as this series go, yeah, I think he's a player to watch.
Yeah, and I really feel like this game could go either way because, both teams have played really well, but also have taken a little bit of time to get those wins. Like they've won later in the games in this tournament and in their conference tournaments. So it should be actually a really fun matchup overall. The other matchup is at 8:30 Eastern, Quinnipiac versus Michigan. And this is like, I feel like it's a David and Goliath situation here with Quinnipiac. They're a really good team, but they have like a more balanced team effort with fewer future NHL players currently on their roster. With Michigan being the number one team in the country who's really stacked, including Adam Fantilli, right? But on Quinnipiac, I would say players of note, Skylar Brindamore, the son of Rod, is a forward on that team. They have an undrafted sophomore, Colin Graff, who's had a really great season. But, this is not a team of giant stars.
No, but there's some really good players here. I mean, again, a lot of what makes teams great and sometimes gets me to pick them is how many seniors do they have? Ethan DeHong, I've been watching him for years, and he's having his best year. He's got 18 goals, 39 points. He is a really good undrafted player. Like this guy, I think we'll have teams looking at him, and he doesn't get talked about very often. Really good, fast, good all-around player. Sam Lipkin is a tremendous player. I mean, he's more than a point a game for them. He never gets talked about. He did play for the Chicago Steel, which was a big-time team. He also played on the World Junior team, and he's only 20. So this is a guy who right now, and he's 6'3", so this is a guy who can help to take over a game. Brindamore's okay. Like, I've watched him enough the last few years, and he's a decent player. But also Jacob Quillen is a really good player, very effective, good goal scorer for them. He's an Arizona draft pick. Oh, no, he's not. Sorry. That quick. My computer was behind, but Lipkin's the Arizona draft pick. Quillen is undrafted, but I don't know if he'd come out after 2 years. He's only 21. He probably would stay in. So I like Quinnipiac, and I don't think it's Davey versus Goliath because I like Rand Pecknold. Rand Pecknold is a heck of a coach. And right now, he's been coaching for 29 years. How many years has the Michigan coach been coaching him?
1. Yeah.
That sometimes has a big factor in college sports. And so I'm looking at it, and almost on the strength of Rand Pecknold, I think Quinnipiac has a great chance here. And I didn't love the way the last game went for Michigan. Now, they did come out and get that great goal. Sam Miskevich got that great goal. Fantilli got the game-tying goal. All that was great. But Penn State gave them fits with their speed and everything else. And don't kid yourself. Rand Pecknold's going to look at what worked in that game and do that. He absolutely will do that, because I've covered enough ECAC and covered his teams to know what he does to keep his teams competitive. And like I said, he is a heck of a coach. And I really think people are underestimating Quinnipiac here.
Yeah, well, we will catch up with how all of this played out on the Monday show once the tournament is over. Really going to be a fun weekend of men's college hockey overall. Always love the Frozen Four. It's in Tampa this year and will definitely be easy to watch on TV. So if that's your thing, I would highly suggest watching, especially for those Flyers prospects.
Oh, yeah.
That will do it for today's show. We will be back again tomorrow to recap the game against the Stars. We're going to take a little deep dive into some third-round draft pick possibilities. As of now, the Flyers have a couple of them with asterisks next to them, so we'll see how that plays out. But really want to get started looking at some of those depth guys in the draft this year. And we have matchups against the Isles and Bruins this weekend to talk about. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at LockedOnFlyers. You can email us at LockedOnFlyers@gmail.com, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making a Locked On Flyers your first listen today. Now make your next listen Game to Game NHL. It's every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. It's on your Locked On NHL feed anywhere you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.